Last night was the end of the Neo Nectar event. Hope you got your playset of Maiden. Hope you got your playset of both the grade 2 and grade 3 gene. Now, if you were not able to get the pulls you wanted, this video is for you. The concept of this video is to show you 2 different decks you can build if you were not able to pull either of the triple rares. Before we get started, I need to give a huge shout out to Asterisk. It was because of him I was able to kind of get the core concepts of these decks down. He was able to build the deck immediately on release and has been playing it since. So I felt like if I was going to be doing this video, I wanted to do it right. So I got his opinion first before I would just start spouting nonsense at you guys. So the goal to maintain with both of these decks is to try to keep the defensive power that Neo Nectar can do with its free calling of grade 2s. The biggest problem with Neo Nectar is that a lot of the really good units have on hit abilities, but only when they hit the Vanguard. So there's a lot of decision points that you have to make in which abilities you need to go off at which times in the game. Sometimes you're going to want Maiden to hit, sometimes you're going to want Behemoth, sometimes even the Tomato you're going to want to hit. You're going to have to make those decisions based on the board state at the time. Now, so the first deck I'm going to show you is if you are missing the grade 3 gene. This means that you were able to pull, hopefully like me, quite a few copies of Maiden. I am still missing my 4th. Maiden of Trailing Rose's ability is that when she hits Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, Persona Blast, check the top 5 cards of your deck, and then call 2 cards out. The main use of this is to make a new column now. With this in mind, now that we do not have Gene in the deck to make a very defensive play at the end of our turn, we are now going to try to be a little more aggressive. Now, because her ability requires a Persona Blast, we're going to be kind of building this deck similar to a Dote deck. The biggest difference between this build and the Gene build is that I recommend that you play 4 of the hand filtering unit. We are a lot more defensive than most builds, which means that in the later game we're going to have a lot more cards in our hand, which means we're going to have a lot more cards that we don't need, so we can use his ability to filter through and try to maybe get another Maiden. Now, I think the trigger lineup should really be discussed before I move forward. Originally, when I was looking at this build without Gene, I was thinking that you'd want to play 9 draws, because like I said, we're going to really try to capitalize on Maiden's ability. After talking to Asterisk, I kind of saw the flaw in that strategy. Like I said, so many units are fighting for that on-hit ability. Maiden's ability kind of looks a little bit weaker when you compare it to the fact that you are taking away another ability on board. So the addition of stand triggers in the deck make it so that you now have another unit that can now hit Vanguard. Speaking of restanding, Behemoth is a Lionheart clone. He has the ability that when he hits the Vanguard, you counterblast 2 and stand a rearguard. This works on Vanguard and rearguard. We are also playing for Laurel. She is the 12k attacker at Vanguard. And then just to fill in the grade 3 slot, we are adding in Exploding Tomato. He has the on hit give a unit plus 3k. So as you see, all these guys are trying to hit Vanguard, which is very hard since there's no retiring in this deck. So if your opponent has 2 interceptors out, you're going to have to make a really smart decision on which unit you're going to want to hit. So in both builds, you're going to be wanting to still play 4 copies of the grade 1 and grade 2 gene. Him being able to be called out from the deck is very powerful. As you can see, I'm still missing one. I'm only 5 double rare gems away from crafting my 4th one, but the event's over, so that sucks. His ability doesn't matter in this build because we don't have the grade 3 gene. We still have access to the grade 2 gene because we have access to the grade 1 gene, which is when he hits the Vanguard, you can call out the grade 2. I really like him on turn 1 if you can attack, because then on your opponent's turn 2, they would usually be able to rush you with multiple grade 2s, and now you have a earlier turn defense. So like I said, because we are now trying to focus more on the Persona Blast, we need to be drawing more. This is where our second Maiden comes in. Maiden of the Rainbow Wood. She is the on-hit counterblast 2 draw card. She can hit rearguard with this ability, so this means that we're able to churn through our deck a little bit quicker. In combination with the hand filter, we now have more cards that we can then go through the deck with. And in almost every game I've played with this build, I've been able to get Maiden off at least once, or have the possibility to, because like I said, everything's fighting for that Vanguard hit. We are also playing 4 copies of the Tree Sage, which is the Transriser clone. This is so that we can plus on the board a little bit easier. This deck lacks a lot of power, so what he allows you to do is be able to get hopefully a grade 1 off the top of your deck and then be able to boost for more power, so that our stand triggers mean a little bit more in the late game. And then to fill in the grade 2 slot, it's my boy, Hey Yo Pineapple. I just kind of noticed when I was getting dressed for this video that a lot of my button-ups have pineapples on them. So yeah, he's my favorite Neo Nectar card. He's actually kind of good in this deck. He is the 8k, but he gets plus 3k if you have a fat board out, which is quite easy with this deck, especially with Tree Sage in it. Getting him onto the board with a Maiden's ability kind of makes it so you're going to have an easier time hitting. Fun little tip if you've ever played Dragalia Lost, the same artist as the guy who drew him. I'm playing the 8k vanilla just to fill out the deck, and both builds are going to be playing P-Knight. The grade 0 gene is not very useful because he only gets you to the grade 1, and the grade 1 isn't what we really care about. We mainly care about just getting the grade 2 out. P-Knight allows you to recycle the cards in your drop, which can be your triggers, or even your grade 2 genes if you really need another copy in your deck. Now moving on to the gene deck, which is the one that's missing Maiden. As you can see, I have less copies of him than I do Maiden. I think even though he is not the boss monster of the deck, he is probably the more powerful one. He has the ability that when he hits Vanguard, you can call out 2 of the grade 2 genes. This is what gives the deck this defensive edge over everything else, because you can call out your, just 2 grade 3s out, have them both be swinging. He hits Vanguard, and then you can just call 2 genes over them. And since we play him as our heal trigger, he then gets shuffled back into the deck. Something that Asterisk pointed out to me is that you never want to go for a gene swing if you are not sure that you have 2 more genes in your deck, because it will not activate. That is why P-Knight is very useful in this build, because now we have more targets for him, especially if our grade 3 gene gets sent to the drop with a drive check. The rest of the deck is very similar to the Maiden deck, obviously. We're playing the 4 Behemoths, 4 Laurels, Tomato, all the genes, Tree Sage. We are now playing less of the on-hit draw 2, and we are now playing more of the 10k. This is because we are now trying to go a little more defensive, and we do not care as much about drawing cards as we do about board presence. I'm still playing the one Pineapple. You can cut him for the 10k, but I'd appreciate it if you kept at least 1 Pineapple in there, just represent. Same reason we're playing the 10k, we're also playing more of the 8k vanilla, just to, have a little bit bigger units out on the board. They make it so the stand triggers are a little more effective, because now we have bigger units out on the board to kind of capitalize on them too. So originally when I was working on this deck, I was thinking that you would want Behemoth to be your ride target because of the restanding he does. Asterisk pointed out to me that because of all the fighting in the hitting abilities, typically he's not going to be going off as often. So having Laurel as your Vanguard at least guarantees you a 12k attack. So going up against something like MLB, it can at least now hit, versus Behemoth, which needs a booster to even get past most Vanguards now. Now, if you're going to be crafting, the second wave of Neo Nectar stuff just came out in the Japan server, and it seems like in a lot of the builds, even the ones that are including just the Musketeers and stuff, the grade 3 gene is still played as a 4 of as the heal trigger because of the defensive power he gives the deck, and Maiden is actually the one that gets cut, which kind of makes sense because she still has the same hindrance as something like Doe or Azure Dragon, where all they have is a Persona Blast, and she doesn't even get like plus 2k like Doe does. So it makes sense that once you get a better grade 3, that you're going to end up cutting her actually. So if you really are wanting to play the deck, I think Gene is the better route to go in when it just comes to crafting. On a little side note, I noticed that during my playtesting with this deck just like hoses Shadow Paladins for some reason. I played against like 3 pretty well built Shadow Paladin decks, and like I just whooped the floor with them. Hello?
Hello? No, I didn't get a draw trigger. That's not going well. I can't beat them on easy. I can't beat that twerp.
Oh, Kamui? The little boy? Yeah, Kamui.
I think so.
Okay.
Using my butt. Oh.
That's my friendo. Yeah, so I hope either of these deck builds can help you kind of finish a build so that you're able to kind of continue to play it in a way that you'd like. I feel like Neo Nectar has a very cool synergy within itself, and it does stuff that most other Zero decks are not doing right now, and that's capitalize on defense more than anything. Something I really liked about it was that you can really kind of play around with your trigger lineup. You can go, 9 draws, you can add in the stands, you can add in crits if you want, and it all kind of works. Yeah, once again, huge shout out to Asterisk for helping me get this deck started. It made my time a lot easier and just kind of understanding it. yeah, if you could please go check him out on YouTube. He has some pretty cool videos, pretty in-depth discussions, especially about Neo Nectar. And he also has a pretty cool Twitter, so hit him up there. Yeah, I never know how to end these. That's all I got.